They stole her future. Now they beg the woman who controls their fate. The glass conference room sits atop a steel and chrome tower that pierces the skyline like a blade. Outside, the city sprawls beneath storm clouds that threaten but never break. Inside, men in tailored suits shift in their leather chairs. Their eyes dart toward the door, then to each other, then down at contracts they haven't yet signed. The door opens. She enters without hurry. Black suit, sharp lines, hair pulled back with surgical precision. Her heels click against marble, each step a countdown. She doesn't smile, doesn't need to. Behind her, through floor-to-ceiling windows, lightning fractures the sky. She sits, signs a document with a fountain pen that costs more than most people's cars. The scratch of ink on paper sounds like a verdict. A journalist's voice cuts through the silence, broadcast on every screen in the building. Helena Cross, CEO of Cross Industries, has just acquired controlling interest in the Langford Group, the same company that fired her 7 years ago after falsely accusing her of embezzlement. The camera rises slowly to her face. Her eyes are winter. She speaks, voice calm as a eulogy. They stole my future. Now I decide theirs. Fade to black. Title card appears. Introduction. The woman who only wanted to be seen. 200 words. 7 years earlier. Eleanor Ward was 23 years old and believed in second chances. She believed in hard work, in meritocracy, in the stories people told about climbing ladders and earning respect. She was wrong. She'd started as an intern at Langford Enterprises straight out of community college. No connections, no trust fund, just a sharp mind and a willingness to stay late when others went home. Within 2 years, she'd moved from filing papers to analyzing financial reports that senior analysts missed. That was her mistake, being too good. Claire Langford, daughter of the founder and heir to an empire built on old money and older cruelty, didn't like competition, especially not from scholarship girls with thrift store blazers and idealism still flickering in their eyes. When $18 million vanished from a subsidiary account, someone had to be blamed. Elena was convenient. "You're too smart to be innocent," Claire said during the interrogation, leaning back in her chair like a queen passing sentence. 3 weeks later, Elena stood in handcuffs while cameras flashed. Her mother watched from the courthouse steps, hand pressed to her chest. That was the day Elena Ward began to die. The fall wasn't dramatic. It was slow, like drowning in shallow water, while people watched from the shore. The headlines came first. Langford employee arrested in embezzlement scheme. Insider theft. Young analyst betrays company trust. How one woman nearly destroyed a legacy. They printed her photo, the one from her employee badge, where she'd smiled because she thought she was building something. The tabloids circled her face in red, added question marks, called her a sociopath, a grifter, a liar, in a cheap suit. Eleanor's mother, Margaret, called her every night from the hospital where she cleaned rooms for minimum wage. "Don't read them, sweetheart. Don't look." But Elena looked. She couldn't stop looking. The trial was a performance. Claire sat in the front row, dressed in white like a wounded angel. She testified with tears in her eyes, voice trembling just enough to sound genuine. "I trusted her," Claire said, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief that probably cost more than Elena's rent. "We all did. And she took everything." The prosecutor showed bank statements, doctored, Elena later learned, but perfect enough to fool a jury. They showed transfers, timestamps, digital fingerprints that led directly to Elena's employee login. Her public defender was overworked and underpaid. He did his best, it wasn't enough. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on 3 counts. Sentencing, 18 months, reduced to 6 with good behavior. Restitution of the full amount. Money Elena had never touched, let alone stolen. Her mother sobbed in the gallery. Elena turned to look at her, really look, and saw something break behind her mother's eyes, something that couldn't be repaired. She mouthed the words, "I'm sorry, Mama." Prison was a concrete box where time moved like sludge. Eleanor kept her head down, worked in the library, read everything she could find about corporate law, forensic accounting, digital security. She wasn't learning to be a better person. She was learning to be a weapon. 3 months into her sentence, the call came. A guard led her to a small room with a phone bolted to the wall. On the other end, her mother's neighbor. "Elena, I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Your mama, she had a heart attack this morning. She didn't make it." The phone slipped from Elena's hand. It swung back and forth on its cord. the neighbor's voice still coming through, small and distant. Elena didn't cry. Couldn't. The grief was too large, too heavy. It filled her lungs like cement. They let her attend the funeral in handcuffs. 2 guards stood on either side of the grave, while a priest said words Elena didn't hear. She stared at the casket, cheap pine, the best she could afford, and made a promise in the space where her heart used to be. I will not die here. I will not let them win. I will come back. When she was released 4 months later, Eleanor had no home, no job, no references. Her name was Poison. Background checks came back flagged. Interviews ended as soon as they Googled her. She lived in her car for 2 weeks, showering at truck stops, eating dollar menu meals, applying to jobs she knew she wouldn't get. One night, parked behind a grocery store, she opened her laptop, the only thing she'd kept from her old life. She stared at the file she'd copied the night before her arrest, when she'd known something was wrong but couldn't yet prove it. One file, one recording. Security footage from Claire's office the night of the transfer. Elena watched it for the 100th time. Watched Claire and her boyfriend, a junior VP with a gambling problem, execute the theft with surgical precision. Watched them laugh afterward, champagne in hand. Watched them frame her. She could release it, send it to journalists, lawyers, the FBI. But Elena had learned something in prison. Revenge delivered too quickly is wasted. She closed the laptop. She would disappear. And when she returned, she wouldn't come back as a victim. She'd come back as the judge, jury, and executioner. Rebuilding a life from ash takes patience and precision. Eleanor had both. She drove south until the city disappeared in her rearview mirror, then east until she reached the coast. In a small town where no one asked questions, she rented a room above a laundromat and paid in cash. She dyed her hair darker, started wearing glasses, changed the way she walked, less hurried, more deliberate. She studied her reflection until she stopped recognizing herself. Good. The old Elena was dead. She died in that courtroom, in that prison cell at her mother's grave. What remained was something harder, something forged in humiliation and grief. She found work as a bookkeeper for a regional import business. Nothing glamorous, nothing that required background checks beyond a fake reference she'd built herself. The owner, an older man named Frank, paid her under the table and asked no questions. At night she studied online courses in advanced accounting, cybersecurity, international finance. She absorbed information like a sponge, soaking up blood. 6 months in, she noticed something wrong in Frank's books. Discrepancies. Money moving in patterns that didn't match invoices. She should have ignored it, kept her head down, but she couldn't help herself. She traced the money through shell companies, offshore accounts, dummy corporations. 3 weeks of work, and she had the full picture. Frank's business was a front for a money laundering operation tied to a European smuggling ring. She packaged the evidence neatly and sent it anonymously to the FBI. Within a month, the whole thing unraveled. Arrests, seizures, headlines, and one very curious lawyer who wanted to know who'd done the forensic work. His name was Marcus Ewan, a corporate attorney from San Francisco who specialized in white-collar crime. He tracked Elena down through digital breadcrumbs she'd left deliberately. "You're the one who took down the Castellano network," he said, when he found her at the laundromat. Elena folded a towel. "I don't know what you're talking about. You left a signature in the file structure. Very subtle. Most people wouldn't catch it." She looked at him. "But you did." "I'm not most people." He smiled. "And neither are you." He offered her a job on the spot. Contract work, completely off books. High-profile cases that needed someone who could disappear into data and find what others missed. Eleanor considered. "I'll need a new name," she said finally. "Already handled." He handed her a passport. Helena Cross, born in Vancouver. Clean record. Impeccable credentials. She studied the photo. Her face, but not quite. Different hair, different expression. A woman who'd never been broken. "Welcome back to the world, Ms. Cross." The work was dangerous and precise. Helena, she thought of herself only by that name now, dismantled corporate fraud networks for UN's clients. She found hidden assets, tracked dirty money, exposed corruption in boardrooms from Seattle to Singapore. She was very, very good at it. Word spread in the right circles. Clients paid enormous sums for her discretion and skill. She saved every penny, invested carefully, bought real estate under shell companies. Within 3 years, she had her own firm, Cross Consulting, specializing in corporate intelligence and forensic analysis. Within 5 years, she'd expanded into acquisitions, buying distressed companies, restructuring them, selling them for profit. Within 7 years, she'd built Cross Industries into a multinational conglomerate worth $2 billion. She was 30 years old, she was untouchable, and she was ready. Late one night, in her penthouse office overlooking the city, Helena opened a file she'd kept hidden for 7 years. Security footage, bank records, emails between Claire Langford and her co-conspirator. Everything she needed to destroy them, but she didn't release it. Not yet. She'd learned patience. She'd learned strategy. Revenge wasn't about exposure. It was about control. She pulled up a financial report on her second monitor. Langford Enterprises, drowning in debt, bleeding value, circling the drain. Claire had run it into the ground with bad investments and worse judgment. The company her father built was dying. Helena picked up her phone. "Marcus, it's me. I'm ready to make an acquisition." "Which one?" She smiled. A cold, precise expression that never reached her eyes. "The one I've been waiting for." The Langford building still dominated the downtown skyline, but up close the cracks showed. Richard Langford, the patriarch who'd built the empire from his father's textile mills, sat in his study on the 42nd floor. He was 73 now, frail in ways that had nothing to do with age and everything to do with regret. His hands shook as he signed another document his daughter had placed before him. "This will stabilize us, Father," Claire said, standing by the window in a cream pantsuit that cost more than her employees' monthly salaries. "The investors are confident." Richard didn't look at her. "What investors?" "The consortium from Singapore. I told you last week." He didn't remember. He remembered less and less these days. The doctor said it was vascular dementia, small strokes stealing pieces of him, one memory at a time, but some memories remained sharp as broken glass. He remembered Elena Ward, the young analyst with the bright eyes and careful handwriting, the one Claire had destroyed. "Did we ever—" He paused, struggling. "Did we ever find out who really took the money?" Claire's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes, something quick and dark. "It was Elena, Father. We proved it in court." "Did we?" He looked at her then, really looked, and for just a moment, the fog cleared. "Or did you?" Claire's jaw tightened. "You're tired. You should rest." She left before he could ask more questions. The Langford Group was bleeding out in slow motion. Stock prices had fallen 40% in 3 years. Key clients had moved to competitors. Subsidiaries were hemorrhaging cash. The quarterly reports read like autopsy results. Claire called emergency board meetings every month, each one more desperate than the last. "We need capital," the CFO said. A man named Brennan, who'd been with the company for 20 years and looked like he aged 5 more every meeting. "Without a major infusion, we're looking at bankruptcy by end of year." "That's not an option," Claire snapped. "Then we need a buyer, a merger, something. This company has been in my family for 3 generations. We're not selling." "Then we're dying." The words hung in the air like a diagnosis. The offer came 3 weeks later. Their corporation called Cross Holdings, based in San Francisco with subsidiaries throughout Asia and Europe. They specialized in acquiring struggling companies, restructuring them, and returning them to profitability. The offer was generous. Too generous, some thought. 51% controlling interest in exchange for a capital injection of $500 million and a seat on the board for their CEO. Claire read the proposal in her office, alone, late at night. The terms were better than anything else they'd received, better than they deserved given the state of the company. She should have been suspicious, but desperation makes people reckless. She signed. The announcement made financial news the next morning. Cross Holdings acquires majority stake in Langford Group. Richard heard it on the television in his study. He called for Claire, but she didn't come. She was already on a plane to San Francisco to meet with Cross's representatives. The old man sat alone, staring at the screen, feeling something he couldn't quite name. It felt like the end of something, or perhaps the beginning. The first meeting took place in a conference room designed to intimidate. 30 floors up, walls of glass, a table that could seat 20. Claire arrived with her lawyer and her COO, both men who looked like they billed by the minute. They were kept waiting 15 minutes, not long enough to complain, long enough to feel it. When the door finally opened, a woman entered. Mid-30s, black suit, no jewelry except a watch that probably cost 6 figures. Dark hair pulled back severely, eyes that gave away nothing. She moved like someone who'd forgotten how to hurry. Behind her, 2 assistants carried tablets and briefcases. They arranged themselves efficiently and said nothing. The woman sat, folded her hands on the table. "Ms. Langford, Gentlemen, thank you for coming. Her voice was silk over steel. Claire studied her, trying to place something familiar in the face, the posture, the voice. Nothing came. You have us at a disadvantage, Claire said with a smile that was all teeth and no warmth. You know who we are, but we know very little about Cross Holdings. You know what matters. We have capital, you need it. We need partners, not dictators. Good thing I'm neither. Helena, because that's who she was now, always, with no room left for the girl she'd been, opened a folder. I'm a surgeon, and your company is dying on the table. Claire's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. With respect, he began. Helena cut him off. The Langford Group has lost 43% of its market value in 36 months. Your subsidiary in Richmond is facing federal investigation for environmental violations. Your flagship hotel chain is bleeding occupancy. Your retail division hasn't turned a profit since 2019. Shall I continue? Silence. So let's skip the posturing, Helena continued. I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to keep you from complete collapse. Whether you like me is irrelevant. Claire's smile vanished. And what exactly do you plan to do with our company? Helena met her eyes. Restore what was lost and collect what's owed. The first changes came quickly. Helena installed her own CFO, fired 3 board members, restructured debt, cut expenses that had been protected by legacy and ego. She was efficient, clinical, merciless. She attended every meeting but said little. She listened, watched, took notes in a leather journal that never left her side. People began to fear her, not because she yelled, she never raised her voice, not because she threatened, she never needed to. They feared her because she saw everything, every lie, every evasion, every corner cut in the name of convenience. And she remembered. 3 weeks into her tenure, Helena called Claire to her office. Not the other way around. Never the other way around. Claire arrived 20 minutes late, a petty power play that Helena ignored completely. You wanted to see me? Claire said, remaining standing despite the empty chair across the desk. Helena didn't look up from her screen. The Richmond subsidiary, close it. Excuse me. The environmental violations will cost more to fix than the facility generates. Close it, sell the assets, settle with the EPA. We'll take the loss this quarter. That facility employs 200 people. Then they'll need to find new jobs. Helena finally looked up. Unless you'd prefer bankruptcy, in which case all 8,000 employees can find new jobs. Claire's hands curled into fists. My father built that facility. Your father built a lot of things. You've destroyed most of them. The words landed like a slap. Claire leaned forward, palms on the desk. Who the hell do you think you are? Helena smiled, a small cold expression that never touched her eyes. I'm the person who controls 51% of your company, which means I'm the person who decides whether the Langford name survives or dies. She closed her laptop. Was there anything else? Claire straightened, vibrating with fury she couldn't express. This isn't over. No, Helena agreed. It's only just begun. Helena waited until everyone had left before she allowed herself to move. She stood, walked to the window, pressed her palms against the glass. Below, the city glittered. Thousands of lights, thousands of lives, all of them indifferent to the small war being waged in boardrooms and balance sheets. 7 years ago, she'd stood in a different building, looking out a different window, believing she belonged. She'd been so naive. She turned away from the view and walked to the elevator, pressed the button for the 23rd floor, the old operations wing where she'd worked as an analyst. It was after hours. The floor was dark, cubicles empty, computers sleeping. She walked slowly through the space, trailing her fingers along desks that probably held different people now. The carpet was new, the paint was different, but the layout was the same. She stopped at what had been her cubicle. Someone else worked here now. Photos of children, a coffee mug with a motivational quote, a small succulent struggling under fluorescent lights. Helena could still see herself sitting here, 23 years old, staying late, believing hard work would be rewarded. Ms. Cross? She turned. An older man stood in the doorway, late 60s, thin, with a face carved by time and regret. He wore a janitor's uniform and held a trash bag. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, Mr. Graham, his eyes widened. Miss Ward. The name sounded foreign, ancient, like something from a different lifetime. That's not my name anymore. He set down the trash bag, moved closer, studying her face. My God, what did they do to you? They killed me. She said it simply, factually. So I came back as someone else. Graham had been the senior accountant when Elena worked here. A kind man who'd brought her coffee sometimes, who told her she reminded him of his daughter. He testified at her trial, said he didn't believe she could have done it. It hadn't mattered. I tried to tell them, he said quietly. After you were convicted, I went through the files myself. I found discrepancies. I brought them to Mr. Langford. What did he say? He wanted to investigate, but Miss Clare, Graham's voice dropped. She said it would damage the company's reputation, that what was done was done. She made him drop it. Helena absorbed this. He knew. He suspected. By the time he was certain you were already released, he tried to find you, hired investigators, but you'd vanished. I was always good at disappearing. Graham's eyes were wet. I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I'm so sorry. Helena touched his shoulder gently. You have nothing to apologize for, Mr. Graham. You were one of the only people who tried. Are you here for revenge? She considered the question. I'm here for balance, she said finally. The scales have been tipped too long. She left him there and took the elevator to the executive floor. Richard Langford's office was at the end of the hall. Double doors, mahogany, with his name etched in brass. She shouldn't go in. It was late. He might not even be there, but she felt pulled, as if by gravity. She knocked softly. Come. The voice was weak, almost lost. She opened the door. Richard sat behind his desk, reading glasses perched on his nose, surrounded by papers that clearly overwhelmed him. He looked up, confused. I'm sorry, I thought... He stopped, stared. Helena stood in the doorway, backlit by the hall lights. Mr. Langford. He removed his glasses slowly. Do I know you? You did. Once. She stepped inside, closed the door. Richard's hands began to shake. Elena. The name hung in the air between them. She didn't confirm or deny, just watched him process what he was seeing. They told me you were gone, that no one could find you. I didn't want to be found. He stood, unsteady, gripping the desk. What Claire did to you was unforgivable, we both know that. I tried to make it right. After I realized, but you were already destroyed, already grieving, already invisible? He flinched. Helena moved closer. You were a good man once, Mr. Langford. Or so I thought. But good men don't let injustice stand because it's inconvenient. I was weak. Tears ran down his weathered face. My daughter convinced me that reopening the case would hurt the company, would hurt the family. And I chose them over you. I chose wrong. Yes, Helena said softly. You did. I don't expect forgiveness. Good. Because I don't have any left. She turned to leave. Wait. His voice cracked. What are you going to do? Helena looked back at him. This old man who'd once held all the power and now held none. I'm going to do what you should have done 7 years ago. What's that? Tell the truth. She left him there, alone with his regrets. The corporate archives were in the basement. Rows of filing cabinets, boxes of documents, servers humming in climate-controlled darkness. Helena had access to everything now. Every file, every password, every locked drawer. She spent 3 nights there, alone, sifting through the past. She found what she expected. Evidence of Claire's incompetence, reckless investments, partnerships that enriched her personally while bleeding the company. But she also found something else. A folder marked Ward Case Confidential. Inside, the original investigation notes, security logs showing Claire's access to the system the night of the theft, bank records that had somehow never made it to trial, email exchanges between Claire and Thomas Hewitt, her boyfriend at the time, discussing the plan, and a memo from Richard to his legal team, dated 3 months after Eleanor's conviction. I have reason to believe we convicted the wrong person. I want this reopened immediately. Below it, a response from Claire. Father, I understand your concerns, but reopening this case would expose the company to lawsuits, destroy our reputation, and cost us millions. Ms. Ward is already serving her sentence. Let it rest. And Richard's final note. Against my better judgment, I'm letting this go. May God forgive us. Helena read it 3 times. Then she photographed every page. She also found the security footage she'd copied 7 years ago, the original, stored on a backup server that someone had forgotten to wipe. She watched it again in the empty archive room. Claire and Thomas late at night in her office, laughing as they routed money through proxy accounts. Claire's voice on the recording. We'll pin it on the intern. Who's going to believe her over us? Thomas. What if she fights? Claire. She won't. She's too powerless. Helena paused the video on Claire's face, young, arrogant, certain of her invincibility. She saved the file to 3 separate drives. The question wasn't whether to release it. The question was when. Helena could destroy Claire immediately. Send the evidence to prosecutors, journalists, board members. Watch her world collapse in a single news cycle. But that would be too quick, too clean. Destruction meant nothing if the person being destroyed couldn't fully comprehend what they were losing. Claire needed to understand, needed to feel every piece of ground crumbling beneath her before the fall. So Helena would wait. She would dismantle the empire first, piece by piece, decision by decision, until Claire had nothing left but the knowledge that her own actions had brought her here. And then, only then, would Helena show the world who Claire Langford really was. She uploaded the files to a secure cloud server with a dead man's switch. If she didn't log in every 48 hours, the evidence would automatically distribute to a curated list of journalists, law enforcement, and board members. Insurance. Then she went home to her penthouse, poured a glass of wine she didn't drink, and stood at the window watching the city breathe. Her phone buzzed. Marcus Ewan. How's the acquisition going? According to plan. Any complications? Helena smiled. Nothing I can't handle. I assume you found what you were looking for. More than I expected. A pause. Are you sure you want to do this, Helena? Once you start, there's no pulling back. I've been sure for 7 years. Revenge is expensive. Sometimes it costs more than we think. Then it's a good thing I can afford it. She ended the call. The next morning, Helena called an executive meeting. All department heads, board members, and senior leadership. Mandatory attendance. She arrived early and stood at the head of the table, waiting. They filtered in, nervous, curious, resentful. Claire came last, making an entrance, sitting as far from Helena as possible. Thank you all for coming, Helena began. I've spent the last month reviewing every aspect of this company's operations. What I've found is troubling. She pulled up a presentation on the screen. In the past 3 years, this company has lost $200 million through bad investments, inflated contracts, and questionable partnerships. She clicked to the next slide. Most of these decisions were made or approved by one person. Claire stiffened. Helena displayed contract after contract, each one bearing Claire's signature. A hotel chain in Dubai that doesn't exist, a shipping company in Panama with no ships, a tech startup that turned out to be a Ponzi scheme. The room was silent. Ms. Langford, the CFO said carefully, can you explain these? Claire's face had gone white. These were vetted. I had advisors. Your advisors were paid to agree with you, Helena said. I have the receipts. She displayed email chains showing Claire had hired consultants specifically to rubber stamp her decisions, even when those decisions were obviously flawed. One board member stood. Are you saying Ms. Langford has been embezzling? No. Helena's voice was calm, precise. I'm saying she's been catastrophically incompetent, which legally is almost worse. Claire shot to her feet. This is a witch hunt. You're trying to discredit me so you can take over completely. I already have taken over, Ms. Langford. I own 51%. I don't need to discredit you. Your own choices have done that. Helena advanced to the next slide. Effective immediately, Claire Langford is removed from all operational decisions. She'll retain her seat on the board and her shares, but will have no executive authority. You can't do that. I can. I am. And if you'd like to dispute it, I encourage you to bring it to shareholders. I'm happy to present this evidence publicly. Claire trembled with rage. Your father signed over control to me. He knew what was coming. The lie was smooth, practiced. Richard had done no such thing, but he wouldn't contradict her, not when the truth was this damning. Claire grabbed her bag and stormed out, heels striking the floor like gunshots. The remaining executives sat in stunned silence. Helena closed her laptop. Meeting adjourned. Get back to work. Richard Langford died on a Tuesday. The call came at 3 a.m. Helena was awake, as she often was, working through financial projections in her home office. The hospital said it was peaceful. A stroke, quick and merciful. He'd asked for his daughter in the final moments, but Claire hadn't arrived in time. Helena attended the funeral, sitting in the back, watching. Claire wore black silk and diamonds. She sobbed into a handkerchief that matched her dress. She gave a eulogy about legacy, family, love. Helena felt nothing. The old man had tried at the end to make amends, but trying wasn't enough. Good intentions didn't resurrect the dead. She left before the graveside service. The reading of the will took place 1 week later at the law offices of Morrison & Crane, the firm that had handled Langford family affairs for 3 generations. Claire arrived with her lawyer. She'd stopped wearing color. Everything was black or dark gray, as if she'd decided to perform grief indefinitely. Helena sat across from her, expression neutral. The senior partner, a man named Eugene Morrison with white hair and tired eyes, opened the will. Richard Edward Langford, being of sound mind, the usual language, bequests to charities, to long-time employees, to distant cousins. Then, to my daughter, Claire Elizabeth Langford, I leave my personal estate, including the family home, its contents, and my personal investment portfolio, valued at approximately $12 million. Claire exhaled. Relief softened her features. Morrison continued. However, my controlling shares in the Langford Group, 30% of the company, I leave to Helena Cross. Silence. Claire's lawyer dropped his pen. What? Claire's voice was barely a whisper. Morrison read it again, slower. I leave my shares to Helena Cross, who represents the integrity and vision this company once had and must reclaim. She is the only person I trust to preserve the Langford name for future generations. Claire stood, chair scraping back. That's insane. He was senile. This will is invalid. Mr. Langford was evaluated by 2 independent physicians 1 week before his death, Morrison said calmly. Both confirmed he was of sound mind. The will is legal and binding. She manipulated him. Miss Langford, I understand you're upset, but making accusations won't change the facts. Claire turned to Helena, eyes wild. You did this. You poisoned him against me. Helena met her gaze. Your father made his own choices, as did you. He was my father. This company is my legacy. Was, Helena corrected. Past tense. Claire lunged across the table. Her lawyer grabbed her, pulled her back. You're going to regret this, Claire hissed. I will destroy you. Helena stood, collected her copy of the will. You already tried that once, Miss Langford. How did it work out? She left Claire screaming behind her. The math was simple now. Helena controlled 51% through Cross Holdings. She now owned another 30% through Richard's bequest, 81% total. The Langford Group was hers, completely, irreversibly. She called a board meeting the next morning. When Claire tried to attend, security stopped her at the elevator. I'm a board member, Claire shouted. Not anymore, the guard said, reading from a tablet. Per the new ownership structure, your board seat has been dissolved. Ms. Cross will explain via formal notification. Claire's face went crimson. You can't do this. I'll sue. You're welcome to try. The guard's voice was polite but immovable. But you'll need to leave the building now. Would you like me to call security to escort you, or will you go voluntarily? For a moment, Claire looked like she might fight. Her hands curled into fists, her breathing ragged. Then something broke inside her. She turned and walked to the elevator, each step smaller than the last, like a queen retreating from a battlefield she'd already lost. Upstairs, Helena addressed the board. As of this morning, I control 81% of this company. Richard Langford's final wishes were clear. This organization needs radical restructuring to survive. She pulled up a presentation. We're divesting all non-performing assets, closing unprofitable divisions, settling outstanding lawsuits, and most importantly, she paused, we're changing the name. A board member, an older woman named Patricia, who'd been with the company for 2 decades, spoke up. Change the name? To what? Langford Cross Enterprises, a new legacy built on accountability. Murmurs around the table. Some of you won't like what comes next, Helena continued. Some of you will resign, that's fine. But understand this, the era of protecting incompetence because of family name is over. From now on, we earn what we keep. She closed her laptop. Any questions? Silence. Good. Get to work. The news hit the markets within an hour. Helena Cross gains supermajority control of Langford Group. Late patriarchs will transfers power to mysterious CEO. Claire Langford removed from board in stunning reversal. Stock prices, which had been stagnant for months, jumped 12% in a single day. Investors loved a good turnaround story, and Helena was writing one in real time. Claire watched the news from her apartment, a penthouse she'd bought with company money during better days. She poured bourbon with shaking hands, drank it too fast, poured another. Her phone rang constantly. Journalists, lawyers, former colleagues wanting to know what happened. She ignored them all. Only one call got through. Thomas Hewitt, her ex-boyfriend, the one who'd helped her steal the money all those years ago. Did you see? She said when she answered. Everyone saw. His voice was tight. Claire, we need to talk. About what? About Helena Cross. What about her? I did some digging. Called in some favors. Cross Holdings didn't exist before 7 years ago. Helena Cross has no history before then. No college records, no employment history, nothing. Claire's hand froze halfway to her glass. What are you saying? I'm saying she's a ghost. Someone invented. And the timing. 7 years ago. Right after... No. Claire's voice was a whisper. No, that's impossible. Is it? Think about it. She knew exactly where to hit us, knew the company inside and out, targeted you specifically. Claire's mind raced back. The way Helena moved through the building like she knew every corner, the way she'd looked at Claire in meetings, not with unfamiliarity but with recognition buried deep. Elena Ward is dead, Claire said, but her voice shook. She disappeared. She was broken, or she rebuilt herself. The phone slipped from Claire's hand. She walked to her bathroom mirror and stared at her own reflection. Older now, harder, with lines around her eyes that makeup couldn't hide. She tried to picture Elena, the young intern with the nervous smile and thrift store clothes. Then she pictured Helena, the cold CEO with perfect posture and eyes like winter. Could they be the same person? She grabbed her laptop, searched for photos of Elena Ward from the trial. The images were old, grainy, from news articles 7 years past. But there, in the shape of the jaw, the way the eyebrows arched, the angle of the cheekbones, there was something, not identical, but familiar. Like seeing a ghost wearing someone else's face. Claire's hands began to shake violently. If Helena was Eleanor, if the woman she'd destroyed had come back, then everything, the acquisition, the humiliation, the loss of control, wasn't business. It was revenge. Helena waited 3 more weeks. 3 weeks of restructuring, of negotiations, of late-night strategy sessions. She let Claire spiral in uncertainty, let the doubt fester. She knew Thomas would figure it out eventually. Knew that he'd tell Claire. Good. Fear was better when you knew exactly what was coming. On a Monday morning, Helena called a press conference. Major outlets were invited. Financial journalists, legal correspondents, even tabloid reporters who specialized in corporate scandal. The auditorium at Langford Cross headquarters was packed. Helena took the podium at exactly 10 a.m., dressed in navy blue, her hair pulled back, expression unreadable. Thank you all for coming. I have an announcement regarding the history of this company, specifically regarding a case of fraud that was never properly resolved. The cameras focused, reporters leaned forward. 7 years ago, a young analyst named Elena Ward was convicted of embezzling $18 million from this company. She served time in prison. Her reputation was destroyed. Her mother died from the stress. Helena paused, letting the information settle. Elena Ward was innocent. The room erupted. Questions shouted over each other. Helena raised a hand. I have proof. Security footage, bank records, email correspondence, all of it showing that the theft was committed by Claire Langford and her then-boyfriend, Thomas Hewitt. Elena Ward was framed to protect the family's reputation. She nodded to her assistant, who distributed USB drives to every journalist. Everything is on these drives, time-stamped, authenticated, legally verified. You'll also find documentation showing that Richard Langford discovered the truth 3 months after Elena's conviction, but chose not to reopen the case due to pressure from his daughter. A reporter from the Times stood. Ms. Cross, why are you revealing this now? Helena looked directly into the camera. Because the truth doesn't expire. And because justice delayed is still justice owed. Another reporter. What do you want to see happen? I want prosecutors to reopen the case. I want Claire Langford and Thomas Hewitt to face the consequences Elena Ward faced. I want the record corrected. And what about Elena Ward? Do you know where she is? Helena's expression didn't change. Elena Ward is exactly where she needs to be. The story dominated news cycles within hours. Bombshell. Langford airframed employee in multi-million-dollar theft. New evidence exonerates convicted analyst, implicates company executive. 7 years later, the fraud behind the fraud. The video footage spread across social media. Millions of views. Claire and Thomas laughing as they stole money and destroyed a life. Public outrage was immediate and viscous. The FBI opened an investigation by Tuesday. Federal prosecutors issued subpoenas by Wednesday. By Thursday, arrest warrants were signed. Claire was taken into custody at her apartment at 6 a.m., still in her nightgown, mascara from the night before smudged beneath her eyes. The photo of her being led out in handcuffs went viral within minutes. Thomas Hewitt tried to flee to the Cayman Islands, but was stopped at the airport. Both were charged with wire fraud, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and perjury. Bail was set at $2 million each. Claire's assets were frozen pending investigation. She couldn't make bail. Helena watched the news from her office, alone, with a glass of scotch she still didn't drink. She felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not triumph. Just the quiet hum of inevitability, like watching a machine complete its function. Her phone buzzed. "Marcus Ewan, you did it. I told the truth. That's not why you did it." Helena was silent. "Do you feel better?" he asked. "No. Will you ever?" "I don't know." A long pause. "What happens now?" Marcus asked. "Now they face what Elena faced, and I move forward." As Helena Cross? She looked at her reflection in the dark window, a woman she barely recognized, wearing a face that wasn't quite hers anymore. There's no one else left to be. The trial began 4 months later. Unlike Elena's trial, rushed, under-resourced, forgotten by media after the initial scandal, this one was a spectacle. Every major news outlet covered it. Court TV broadcasted live. Legal analysts debated the case on cable news every night. The evidence was overwhelming. The security footage showed everything. The bank records told a story of systematic theft. The emails were damning. Claire's defense tried to argue that the footage was doctored, that the records were falsified, that this was all an elaborate setup by a competitor, but forensic experts confirmed authenticity. Character witnesses described Claire's spending habits, her gambling debts, her increasingly erratic behavior as CEO. Thomas Hewitt tried to make a deal, testified against Claire in exchange for a reduced sentence. It didn't help either of them. Helena attended the trial every day. She sat in the back row where Claire could see her if she turned around, which she did, constantly. Their eyes would meet across the courtroom, Claire's filled with hatred and fear, and something that might have been recognition. Helena's empty as glass. On the final day, when the verdict was read, Claire stood at the defendant's table exactly where Eleanor had stood 7 years before. On the count of wire fraud, guilty. On the count of conspiracy, guilty. On the count of obstruction of justice, guilty. Claire's legs gave out. Her lawyer caught her. The judge set sentencing for 6 weeks later. Helena left before Claire was led away. She'd seen enough. Sentencing day arrived with winter rain. Claire received 8 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole for the first 4. Thomas Hewitt received 6 years, his cooperation earning him a slight reduction. Both were ordered to pay full restitution, $18 million plus interest, plus damages to Elena Ward's estate, money they no longer had. The Langford name, once synonymous with power and prestige, was now a cautionary tale about hubris and corruption. 2 weeks after sentencing, Helena received a letter, prison stationery, Claire's handwriting, less controlled than before. "Ms. Cross, I know who you are. I've known for months. I was just too afraid to admit it. You have every right to hate me. I destroyed you. I took everything from you and felt nothing. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve to ask. But I need you to understand I was drowning. My father expected perfection. The company was failing. Thomas and I were desperate. When the money went missing, it seemed so easy to blame someone powerless. I didn't think of you as a person. I thought of you as a problem to solve. That's not an excuse, it's just the truth of who I was. Prison has given me time to see what I couldn't before, that you were real. Your suffering was real. Your mother's death was real. I killed someone even though I never touched her. I don't know what I'm asking for. Forgiveness seems obscene. Understanding seems too much. Maybe I just needed you to know that I see it now. All of it. I'm sorry doesn't cover it, but I am. I'm so desperately sorry." Claire Helena read the letter 3 times. Then she burned it in her fireplace and watched the paper curl into ash. But the letter stayed with her. Late at night, when the city was quiet and her penthouse felt too empty, she'd think about Claire in a cell just like the one Elena had lived in. Would she change? Would suffering make her better, or just more bitter? Did it even matter? 3 months later, Helena made a decision she didn't fully understand. She requested a visitor's slot at the federal facility where Claire was held. The guards processed her through security. Metal detectors, searches, bureaucratic indifference. She was led to a visiting room. Grey walls, scratched tables, the smell of industrial cleaner and despair. Claire was brought in wearing orange scrubs that hung loose on her frame. She'd lost weight. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup, no jewelry. She looked young, vulnerable. She looked the way Elena had looked 7 years ago. They sat across from each other. A guard watched from the corner. For a long moment, neither spoke. "You came," Claire said finally. "I got your letter. I didn't think you'd respond." "I didn't plan to." Claire's hands were folded on the table. Her fingernails were bitten raw. "Why did you?" she asked. Helena considered the question. "I'm not sure." Another silence. "Is it enough?" Claire's voice cracked. "What you did to me. Is it enough? Do you want the truth?" "Yes." "No." Helena's voice was quiet. "It's not enough. It will never be enough. You took years from me that I can't get back. You killed my mother. You destroyed my belief that the world could be fair." Tears ran down Claire's face. "But," Helena continued, "I'm tired of carrying you. The weight of hating you is heavier than I thought. So you forgive me?" "No." The word was firm. "Forgiveness would suggest you've earned it. You haven't. Maybe you never will. Then why are you here?" Helena leaned forward slightly. "I'm here to tell you that I'm done. You'll serve your time. You'll live with what you did. And I'll build something that doesn't include you. Not as a victim, not as an enemy. Just as someone who used to matter and doesn't anymore." Claire absorbed this, nodding slowly. "That's fair. Nothing about this is fair." "No." Claire wiped her eyes. "But it's just." Helena stood. "Wait." Claire reached out but stopped herself from touching. "Can I ask you something? One question. Do you think I can be better? After this?" Helena studied her. This woman who'd once held all the power and now had none. This person who'd destroyed her and was now destroyed in turn. "I don't know," Helena said honestly. "But that's your journey now, not mine." She turned to leave. "Eleanor," Claire's voice broke. "Thank you for coming." Helena paused at the door but didn't turn around. "My name is Helena." And she left Claire there, sitting alone in a grey room facing the consequences that had come finally for them both. 6 months later, spring arrived with cherry blossoms and a softness the city hadn't seen all winter. Helena stood at her mother's grave, holding flowers, white lilies, her mother's favourite. The headstone was simple: Margaret Rose Ward, beloved mother. She saw the best in everyone. Helena knelt, placed the flowers carefully. "I did what I said I would," she said quietly. "I came back, I made them see." The wind moved through the trees. "The company is profitable now. We've endowed a scholarship in your name. Full ride for young women from low-income families who want to study business. 20 students this year, maybe more next year." She traced her mother's name carved into stone. "Claire is in prison. Thomas too. The record is corrected. My name, Elena's name, is cleared." A bird landed nearby, hopped closer, then flew away. "But I'm still Helena. I can't go back to being her. That girl is gone." Her voice caught. "I don't know if you'd be proud of what I did, or horrified. Maybe both." She wiped her eyes. "I'm not sorry, but I'm not celebrating either. It's just finished. And now I have to figure out what comes after revenge." She stood, looked at the city skyline in the distance. "I'm going to try to build something good. Something that helps people who were like me, powerless, invisible, easy to destroy. I'm going to try to be the person you thought I was." A pause. "I miss you every day, but I'm still here, and I'm not afraid anymore." She kissed her fingertips, pressed them to the headstone. Then she walked back to her car, where her assistant waited with a folder of documents that needed reviewing, calls that needed returning, decisions that needed making, the work of living. That evening, Helena stood in her office, looking out at the city she'd conquered and rebuilt. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. Langford Cross Enterprises announces major expansion. New ethics division. She smiled. Small, genuine, the first real smile in years. Behind her, on the wall, hung a single photograph she'd recently added: Eleanor Ward at 23. Graduation day from community college. Cap slightly crooked, smile bright with hope. Helena looked at the girl she'd been. "I kept my promise," she said to the photograph. "They'll never forget what they did to you." She turned back to the window. The city glittered below, full of people fighting their own battles, carrying their own scars, trying to survive systems designed to crush them. Helena Cross, once Elena Ward, once victim, once ghost, controlled a fortune, an empire, and finally, her own story. But more importantly, she'd reclaimed something she thought was lost forever, her future. And this time, no one could take it away.